Hello listeners, and welcome to part 2 of this mini-series on cult girls. I'm your speaker Casey, host of the Cult Vault podcast, and for this segment I'm chatting with former Jehovah's Witness turned activist and author Natalie Grand. For full-length early access to ad-free episodes, please visit patreon.com/thecultvault. And now, here is Natalie. I suppose you've probably done a lot of research into the moral side and the ethical side of this judicial system, but there are some high demand religious groups that have religious psychologists that you'll go and see if you're struggling, who are not accredited or licensed in any way, which of course we would probably all agree is has the potential to completely send somebody into a psychotic episode if they are suffering with ill mental health. And then on the Jehovah's Witnesses scope, this judicial system that exists, people have to train for years and years and years to become lawyers, to become prosecutors, to become part of the legal system that exists in whichever country that you are living in. But these are just people men that are supposedly chosen, and they run these meetings and these judicial meetings in that same sense. They give it the same level of importance and severity, with very serious consequences for those on the receiving end. And when you hear about people going through cross-examinations in courthouses by trained individuals, the people that have been on the receiving end of these judicial meetings from the elders of their kingdom hall have explained it in the same way. Like, you've had sex, tell me exactly how you had sex and how long it lasted for and which parts of your body were touched and how long they were touched for. And the excruciating detail that these individuals are expected to go into reminds you of the legal system, but it's taken place with people that have no legal training.
Yeah, you're right. Most of them, in my experience, are construction workers or like window cleaners. And a lot of them feel bothered. I mean, they're already going to all these meetings. They have their own family. I've heard them. I was a pioneer, which, I went through a little training. That's the highest position of a woman. And I went to some of these elder dinners and it broke my heart. They were talking about one of the sisters that did come to them with serious problems and were like acting like she's a bother. And I'm thinking, where can this lady go? They're being bothered. And they do. Like, I've gone to them about something and they act, if they have a committee, they're like, you're wasting our time. We could have been with our family. And it's like, I didn't want a committee meeting. Like, you guys are ruining my life. Like, please just let me go then. But they don't want to let go of that power. And so, so like with that lady, they make her a bother, but they don't really want you getting help in the secular world. There's a lot of literature saying be careful of marriage counselors and mental health, because those doctors and stuff, they don't have your best interest in heart, and they could be getting Satan ideas inside your head. And so it's like, so there's really no mental health, and there's no, like, at least at some churches, they let some of the women do, they may have some, like, I think that is very important to use license, because they do like vows on for women and stuff. They shouldn't be pushing like what's best for the church, but at least they're giving them some kind of like outlet or something. But in this system, there is none. They're not letting this child, they have no training. They're sexually interrogating children. They're considering them willing participants. They're mad at them that they didn't come forward quick, so therefore they must have wanted it. They're asking very sexual questions to youth and stuff. It's and then they're taking notes, and this is all in my thing. I mean, this is happening in every single congregation. And then also some of these men, like I just saw on Reddit the other day, they said that one of the elders, he didn't even have to know how to read to become an elder. So I guess like somebody like read his book or his training or whatever, like he does audio, but it's like these men are not trained how to handle trauma and stuff.
There's the case of potential re-traumatization, not just through speaking through it, but then of course not receiving the correct responses or the correct support from retelling those experiences. And then there's the two witness rule to consider as well, and how perpetrators are given very light reprimands for the serious crimes that they've committed within religious groups that protect abusers.
Yeah, and some of these predators, they know the system. Now, some do admit. So, like if anybody's a researcher right now, a good case to follow is the Monica Hines versus Watchtower. A child was sex trafficked at Bethel, and her person that admitted that he admitted it, and nobody notified the police, and so he still is in the organization. He's in Ecuador now. So, that hasn't settled, but these were the accusations. So, but he happened to admit it, and that is even more disturbing. But some of these predators, you have to have two witnesses. So really, how many abused children that are CSA have two witnesses? Now, even if there's let's say it's in court and the guy still is denying to his elders, saying, and there's like a DNA kit and there's like pictures and they have been prosecuted and now they're on a list. If he's telling the elders, that's not true, the elders have to believe him because he didn't have two witnesses. So the second witness cannot be a DNA kit. It has to be exactly what the scripture set out, because and it's funny because they pick and choose which scriptures are slaves in there and stuff, but slavery is not okay today, and they're not promoting that. And there was also multiple marriages. People could use a concubine. They don't allow that today. So they are picking and choosing what parts of the Bible that they'll say they'll never change on. And I think that's really interesting. And so that's why, the more people that come out of these things are like research and stuff, because you start to notice these things and you're like, that's not right. That doesn't align with my ethics. So, so you kind of see these organizations for what they are.
You put something on Twitter once that I have quoted in so many interviews up to this point, and it was around the blood doctrine. And you wrote something about how the Jehovah's Witnesses have changed their stance on certain policies. There is evidence of old publications and new publications where things have been changed, but they will never change the blood doctrine because of how many people have died unnecessarily because that doctrine existed in the first place.
Yeah, that's that's the only reason I could think that they don't change it. I mean, who would not want their lives saved, like a mom? I mean, there was a mom of a friend of a friend, and she died during childbirth. She refused a blood transfusion, and they paint her, this is just, a day in the life of Jehovah's Witness. She was a hero. Are you a hero? Because you left that kid and that dad without a mother. And what kind of God would want that? I mean, so we have modern medicine today. I mean, so so some of these things, even so, if they change that, what about all those families that lost loved ones? Almost every Jehovah's Witness has some kind of relative or something that rejected this blood transfusion thing. I remember my mom gave birth and she had some kind of issue like that. And we were told, it was kind of a sad day. I was very young, but I was told that maybe my mom might not make it because she rejected the blood. And so, I'm thinking, will I have a mom? So this is the kind of God they are worshiping. And so that changed. A lot of people would probably be like, what kind of religion is it? Why did this person die over that? And another one, I feel like they're stuck in a cross or a thing and they don't really like to talk about it, is like, what about the lesbian and gay thing? Because people are getting like sex changes and stuff. And so how does that work out if they are now another gender? And I notice a lot of us notice they don't really touch that topic because they've been so down on lesbians and gays. They do not inherit God's kingdom. They call them names and stuff. So they're really stuck in a pickle because a lot of these parents have rejected their kids, or they may have hurt themselves or something because of they didn't want to be gay. And so if they change that policy, that's going to make a lot of angry people that abandon their children over some of these issues.
Few of the individuals that have come onto the show have discussed their own reasons for leaving the Jehovah's Witnesses, being because of their sexuality and the lack of acceptance for the LGBTQIA plus community within the Jehovah's Witnesses. So, I mean, I think that there would be a lot of upset and outrage, but that would be such a progressive step, wouldn't it? All those children
Yeah.
existing in that environment who are like, oh my goodness, I can be me. I would just that would be an
Yeah.
incredible thing.
The
I
right
mean,
thing
the
to
Jehovah's
do.
Witnesses, they're under such a spotlight at the moment and under so much scrutiny that who knows, we might see some really wild changes in policy because they're losing members left, right, and center as all of these allegations and historical cover-ups of sexual abuse come forward. I just
Well,
made
I'm
a
a
note here as
landlord
you.
and I'm a landlord and I do rent to the LGBT. I think they're fantastic. And that's being fair. I didn't even really think about it. Like somebody pointed out, and that one time there was an unmarried couple and they're like, thank you so much. And I was like, really? I was like, that didn't even cross my mind. Like it didn't matter what you were. And I thought, wow, I came from an organization that was extremely judgmental that way. And they just acted that way to their family members all the time. And so I think like, yeah, the fairness, if the women, the way they treat women less than men, there's not the same representation and leadership. And then also they're not being fair. So if they let a heterosexual get cut, I get the rules that they want people to be married before having certain things. So, but why not let gay people get married? That should be the same. That would be fair. But so, yeah, so it'll be interesting in our lifetime to see if some of this awareness, because you can't do that. Like back in the day, here in the States was, black and white. You can't say, oh, I'm going to have this race at my school. That is 100. Your school is not going to be around. If you did that today, but in the past that was okay. So it'll be interesting to see if some of these things will stand up in time. And I really hope that they don't. I hope that there's fairness. A lot of activists are not trying to shut them down or anything. They just want, I think people should have freedom of religion, but it should be a fair place and it should be humane and be for the betterment of them. So yeah, believe what you want to believe, but you have to be fair to people.
Freedom of religion and freedom to leave your religion. I think that's really important, isn't it? My partner said to me last night, when you look at groups, how do you determine whether you think that the group is truly cult-like? And I'd say to him, the first thing to look at is how easy is it for an individual to leave? And
Absolutely.
if you can't walk away from a group without any consequence to you, I would hedge my bets that there is some cult-like coercive control taking place within that group. And then I made notes here on our discussion about the blood doctrine, that doctors must get really nervous when they have people come into the hospital and have this as their elected religion on their paperwork. I
Oh,
can't imagine how difficult it must be to be a surgeon or a doctor and say, oh, this woman's in labor and she's having difficulties and she's got Jehovah's Witnesses written on her paperwork. And how strong must your belief be in your organization for you to, during childbirth, where a woman becomes a different person almost in terms of the protective nature of her children, to say, don't give me the blood, even if she knows she might die, and not be there to raise that child, or whether even if the baby will be born healthy because of the complications with the birth, and not accepting the blood to be there to see the result of the labor itself. It, to me, all of these individuals who themselves have said no, don't give my child the blood, how strong must your beliefs be for you to override every natural instinct to protect the people that you love the most in your biological core?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, we carry the blood card as kids. I mean, if I was in a car accident, I'd be dead today. There's not a doubt in my mind. There's some layers to this too. So like, let's say you're a mother, your chart's kind of out, your husband might be in the room. It depends on the state. There is a liaison. Jehovah's Witnesses don't just let you be in peace about this issue. So I will give some examples and people can do their research. It's all there. Let's say you are a receptionist or work in the medical field. There was an article put out in the Watchtower that if you saw in somebody's file, meaning another Jehovah's Witness, that you saw that they got a blood transfusion, you are to tell the elders. And it said, even in the Watchtower, it said, even if it violated the law. That was so, those are known in there. So that means you don't know if you're working in a hospital. So let's say your mom, these fear, they work on fear Armageddon, fear of disfellowship, fear of losing your family because that's all you got because you didn't make any worldly connections. So you're thinking, oh my God, now this can be my file forever. Somebody's going to find out about it and they'll report me. And that's like the worst feeling. So you got that issue. Then you may have your spouse that's very in your business. And then they're calling, the Jehovah's Witnesses have a liaison team. So that means in the area of your county, there's certain designated elders that went through a special training and they go to the hospital and like pray with you and really get face to face with these doctors to make it so important that they're not taking the blood. And a year ago, I saw one of their secret training that came from the governing body member. It was a leaked video and I was baffled because I kind of know a little bit about the medical field. Some of my friends are physicians or work nurses and stuff. And they were saying that these elders to just crack a smile in the hospital to that a smile is really going, and I'm thinking that's just so insulting. Like, you know, a doctor has to do their job. If the patient, it depends what the laws are. If the patient's saying I can't get, well, you know, they can give their advice or when the husband's not there. But I was like, how weird that these non-medical people are so arrogant, thinking a smile is going to work on a doctor when they're just trying to preserve their life. They have an oath to save their life and a lot of training. And I thought this is just so weird. And then they were saying too, like a baby, you just need to put them in the sun. If this is what the governing body, he's not even a doctor, medical doctor. He might have like some other degree, but it wasn't in the medical field, and said, put the baby in the sun. Now I've had children, most of the time they do that anyways. They put a UV light on them. It's like kind of standard care. And I was thinking, if he had a child and he worked in there, that's a given. That's a given what they do. Like if a child has some kind of blood problem or something, that's not really going to fix it. And they already know that. So I'm like, why are they treating these highly intelligent people so stupid? It's very disturbing.
If you're in the hospital for something like labor as well, you don't want your 50 or 60-year-old elder coming to knock on your room door like, hey, have you got a minute? We've just got some scripture to go through. Like you've only got your top on, you've got no bottom half on, and you're like, get out of my room.
Yeah. Well, I've talked with, when I was heavily in it, other moms, we didn't now, but this isn't for all countries. We didn't have to worry as much in our state because the state, you know, when I was a kid, it probably wasn't like that, but the state sometimes will decide for them. And so I kind of subconsciously thought, well, I don't really have to worry about that, you know, so there is things, but that's not a really good thing to rely on, what kind of responsible mom is. And getting that no blood off of my thing took years. Every time I had 2 babies since I was a Jehovah's Witness, and they kept bringing them, and I said, no, take that off. What is it going to take? I was so
I want blood.
humiliated.
I want all the blood. Give me all the blood.
Yeah, it was like etched in there. So I was like, yeah. So I had to like call the main thing, get it removed. And I was like, I thought I already did this. So yeah, I was like, please take that off. I don't believe in any of that anymore. I don't want them to think I'm some horrible mother. That's the way it marked to me. I was like, I'm not one of these crazy people.
Sounds like the plot for a really uncomfortable psychological thriller movie where you go through your whole life in this organization and you finally leave under all of these difficult circumstances, and then you're in a car accident and you end up not getting that blood transfusion that you
Yes,
needed anyway after all that because they just
yes,
didn't
that's
take it off your paperwork. Oh my goodness.
yes.
Oh my
'Cause
goodness.
I wasn't
Anybody that
providing
writes
anything.
screenplays, you should take a note of that.
But when
That
you're a
is
Jehovah's Witness, I remember just bringing like field trips. Every field trip we filled out, my mom would put no blood transfusion because you had to mark which hospital you go to and stuff. So this is like every time I went to the dentist. I mean, some doctors have said that, like they're like, these Jehovah's Witnesses come in and they say, and this is a little bit in the book too. They say, they're getting a tooth worked on or something. I don't take a blood transfusion. And they're like, we don't even give blood transfusions here. Like, oh my gosh. But I mean, this is how a lot of them feel. I mean, because they wouldn't make it to the afterlife. So they really believe this. So yeah, it's just what it is. Or they think, some ladies in it, they think that this one's really funny. They think that they're like, how they know, because there has been some bloodless surgeries and stuff, some technology. I don't know if it's credit because of all these Jehovah's Witnesses, but I don't even think it matters. But a lot of these witnesses that were kind of more newly converts, they're like, wow, Jehovah's medical advice, they've done this, they advanced that, and they know there's AIDS in it. And they kind of just have like this really like uneducated, view to anything. Like Jehovah is like doing the medical field, and the Jehovah's Witnesses do nothing for the medical field, really. I mean, they don't have any, like the Catholic Church, they'll have med schools, colleges for nurses. They may even have a hospital. Jehovah's Witnesses don't have anything. They're really providing nothing to the medical community, but their people really think these things. And it's like they're so sheltered, they don't even realize how the other world is living.
Well, we have a few minutes left before we finish up today. So I wanted to ask if you could share with us how, when, and why you eventually left the Jehovah's Witnesses altogether after your disfellowshipping and reinstatement, and then disfellowshipped again.
Well, I took my window. It was, I put some preparation into it, but it's not anything that's overnight for most Jehovah's Witness, and everybody's on a different journey. And so that's why the book is beautiful. It's 4 women who each made a change for the better in their life and wanted something better. And so I'm all about individuality and finding and keep changing, because they make it seem bad that you change, and change is what we all should be doing. We all should be learning and changing and trying new things. And so it's a process, and it has been beautiful. I mean, there's hard times because there's scars. I mean, nobody wants to be abandoned and told that they're satanic because they wanted a better life for their children. But now I'm seeing the fruits of my friends who their children are doing amazing thing and they're happy. And I was growing in it. I didn't see happy teenagers and teenagers doing great things. I just saw them getting married, or they were having vices or secrets. And so now I'm seeing these blossom and what they're doing, and then it's like it keeps growing. Like maybe they go back to college or they're trying a new thing. And I was like, that's what's life about. It's about, even if it's not that, maybe they're pursuing art or travels or helping people or animals. And so in the book, there's different people relate to. Like one of the ladies, she stopped knocking on doors and she saves animals. And she gave me a collage of all her kittens she has rescued. And because there's about animals in there. And I thought that just melted my heart, because she got what I was saying and she was happy now, because that now she, instead of spending all those hours, preaching for this film organization, she's doing what her heart and her calling was, and it's bringing her joy and peace. So that's the beauty.
Was it the church's or the organization's decision for you to be disfellowshipped where you thought, okay, I'm just going to leave and I'm not going to go back? Or was it
Oh yeah, that's a good question.
like
Yeah,
the
I didn't, my body was not acting in it. I wanted to fade out. I've tried to fade out so many times in my life, but I'm just that girl. I'm one of those that I can't fade out. Like it puts, people want to make sure I burn. So yeah, I was married. I had no reason to be kicked out at that point. Like a lot of elders probably would have said, she's married, I was having another baby, or, later on when I was trying to get reinstated, they picked it for me. I begged to stay in for my family. My dad gave me an ultimatum, and I told them I did not believe it, but he said I still had to make sure that I get reinstated. And I was hoping to fade out and have some, save a couple friends that weren't truly my friends. It doesn't feel good when people like talk bad about you and stuff like that and say horrendous things. But now I'm over it. It was a blessing in disguise now that I was kicked out, because what if I was one of those weirdos that still would have a Christmas tree, but I couldn't like post it or send out a Christmas card? Because this is what a lot of them do, that stay for their families. So they're not really being authentic. And so, I did try to get reinstated. They would not reinstate me. Whereas like, there's no reason for me to be out. But they wouldn't let me back in, and they wanted to study with my children. And I didn't know these particular elders, and there was no way I was going to let them be alone. And my kids did not want that either. And it could have messed up my custody too. And so that held me back. And my daughter was older at that time, a young teen. And she was like, stop this, mom. Like, we don't want to be this, like, and don't do this to your future kids. And that was all I needed, because it didn't matter. I loved my kids more than anything. And I was like, I don't want to do what my parents have been doing to me, like controlling all my decisions in life and telling me what I want them to live their authentic life. And so that was my aha moment. And I mean, I'm just so appreciative that my daughter allowed me, that had the wisdom at that young age to really give me that permission. And her life is now, she tells me all the time that she's very appreciative for that and how amazing I am. And my son too, he's a teenager. He thinks it's the wackiest religion. And so he'll be the same too. He gets to now live his authentic life. So, and then my other
That's
kids
great.
too. So it's really
That's
wonderful.
so great. It is, and it shows the bond and the relationship that you must have cultivated with your children if your daughter felt comfortable enough to say to you, like, Mom, we can't do this anymore, or we shouldn't be doing this anymore. Mom, just give up, like, just don't do it.
Because there was just
how
too much
many
sadness. She's like, these people don't love you, Mom. Why are you going there? You cry and then you're sitting in the back, and we don't want to go either. We want to be happy. You have good things in your life. And so I'm just taking this martyr and this because this is all I've seen growing up, is always like, take it from these guys. And they may, my mother felt like some of the elders were spying on us. Like if I came to see them when I was disfellowshipped or something, she was like, they might drive by. And I thought, how sad. You really think the elders are driving by and staking our house out? And that they do that. They did that. They did it to me. So these are real concerns. And it's, to me, looking back, it's like, how evil that you would be meddling in another family's love and their connection, because family is everything in these cultures, and that love helps people blossom and do these things. So yeah, it goes against everything I believe in now. I would never treat my children this way.
So my last question is, to finish up today, Could you please tell all of the listeners all of the activism work you're involved in, this research that you do, and all of this hidden knowledge that you share with people? Where do you share it? How can people learn more? And of course, where can people find a copy of Cult Girls, the incredible graphic novel and the first of its kind?
I love that you asked that, because I get so many who ask because they see me like on a channel or something, or they read the book. And we are raised, and this goes for more outside even the cult. Like, think of what's going on in Iran right now. People in my area are protesting the women that get murdered in there for not being, part of that regime. And it's about raising consciousness, support anything that goes with your ethics. It's like, it could be putting a star on the book or a channel. I always on a channel put thumbs up. These are like free things and easy things. If there is some kind of law being passed, open the statute of limitations for victims, change the marriage laws that a child has to sign on her own marriage certificate because she can't get help if she's battered. The battered woman shelter only allow 18 and up. Anything that protects journalists, share their story, like it, read it, click it, so that the newspedia reward journalism, that because those are our pioneers that are covering the story. There's a lot of hush money and court cases going on within these cults, but they're not being put out in the public. It's a lot of us passionate anti-cult people doing that. But if the more clicks they got, that's what it sells. So support journalism. There's just so much. Or I care about those Jehovah's Witnesses. I have said things to them. There was 2 women. I said, do you really believe that all humanity, these races and animals, came from only like 3,000 years ago? And they looked at me like, no. And I said, well, if you don't believe that, can you go to your leaders and tell them to change their policies about women? And then they weren't used to somebody saying that. So it's about raising awareness. If you saw somebody going in a car drunk because they may murder people, would you say something? Because people do. They're like, hey, you know what? Can I call you a Uber or something? Because that's raising consciousness. That's even beyond the law. That's a social awareness. So we're all playing a part in this. So, make it your business or your comment, or like for me, I can speak from this because I lived it. So I can tell teachers in this, and then most of the time they never knew any of this stuff, and then they're sharing experiences. So these are easy things. This is just the tip of the iceberg. So anyways, that's what I say to them, and it feels good. And you're connecting, and I'm connecting with other cult survivors or abused women for this or that. And I want victims to be heard, and I want children protected. I want their education protected. I do believe in licensed facilities and teachers because they're mandated to report laws. Hopefully, yeah. There's just so much, with the Jehovah's Witnesses. They're showing these horrendous violence of the apocalypse coming. And so I'm telling people, it's still in their videos. They're burying their dead. So a lot of parents here in America, they're like, oh, wow, this organization's going to study with my kid. And it's like, do you want your kid being told that college is evil and that that you guys are all going to lie and they're going to replace you with their spiritual family? And they're like, no. So it's like, you don't really want this surfacing in here. You need to warn your children, just like Dr. Steve Hastings said in his cult psychology book. The more we get the information out, our kids will not be vulnerable. So empowering them with knowledge and critical thinking skills, they can protect themselves from abusive organizations or abusive relationships. So that's all empowerment. So yeah, so we're all playing a part into this, but it goes even beyond the cults.
I love that. I love that. That's incredible what you've said there about just really, really taking a few minutes out of your day to share other people's work and give it a click and push everything through the algorithm. I think that's great, and hopefully we'll have some more of that, and there'll be more articles coming out, like the recent one around the 5 arrests of the abusers who were Jehovah's Witnesses in Pennsylvania. Was something
that was
I
an
covered.
indictment. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of them. Yeah, if you go to my favorite person, he's a famous journalist. It's Mark O'Donnell. He will release, I follow him on Twitter, and he was also in that documentary that is free on YouTube called The Crusaders. There's a lot of Jehovah's Witness documentaries that are excellent, just touching multiple things like their hidden database of sex crimes or murderers. But yeah, he's kind of covering a lot of these things, but it was so bad in that state that they indicted him, and the state attorney general gave a speech, and it was wonderful. But this is happening all over the world. There was like this in Australia, a guy like this with 68 counts of sexual crimes and the Jehovah's Witnesses. And these victims were just poo-pooed and all this stuff. He was so bad that the judge would not let him make bail. And I thought, how ironic that these elders were protecting this guy, but this guy was so bad that they won't even let him make bail. And I thought, just in my heart, that's just for victims out there that never get their peace or they're afraid. I was like, just that in themselves, like that brings me like, people that have seen things, we knew it wasn't right. But when we see that the world has a higher standard than them, that's pretty amazing.
Mm-hmm. It makes me feel like there is a day of reckoning on the way for the Jehovah's Witnesses, but perhaps not in the way that they've preached all of these years. And that's the best thing that we can hope for moving forward.
Yes, that's the higher collective consciousness, just like the awareness of drunk driving. People didn't have that. They didn't have, kids weren't in seatbelts before, but everybody knows why a kid wears a seatbelt now. So so it doesn't matter necessarily the law, as long as we keep feeding media and talking and saying what our ethics are, and we're all coming together as just doing our part. And it doesn't take much. We are changing a social awareness on a global level that women are, whether it's women or children or races or sexuality, this is all actually, I think it's all changing pretty rapidly right now. And a lot of people are noticing the change. Our social barriers are coming down, and these governments are cracking down, like Norway, Australia, other cults are being exposed, and that's all good for the whole thing.
Absolutely. And Cult Girls is available on Amazon, I believe.
Yes, it's available on Amazon, Barnes and Noble. If you want to do something really kind, request it at your local library. It is really hot in Canada. Some of our libraries have 6 copies and there's a wait list. It's in Australia. All these countries you just make a little request and then it'll put it in the young people section. It's very unique. It's already won 3 awards, and those were the only awards that have come out so far. It won gold. It's a comedy. It has an educational backdrop, but a lot of women that have been raised in strict cultures, they appreciated it. And it also is a romance. So yeah, and it's colorful, and graphic novels are really popular. So it's some people, after they're done, they've given it to teachers or teenagers. They like them.
And the characters are all really diverse as well. And I think that that's something that is important to highlight as well. So I just really enjoyed it. It is really fun, but you do come away like, oh yes, I've still learned something, even though I've enjoyed it whilst I've been going through it, which is a nice change of pace sometimes, because as you said, some of this subject material when you're researching can get a bit heavy. And there are certain texts that you wouldn't pick up as a 15-year-old girl who's, got a crush on somebody that she goes to school with.
Yeah, some like people are curious. They're if they pick it up, they probably will look at them a little differently. I've had a lot of people that were dating maybe they just didn't an ex Jehovah's Witness, or maybe their mom didn't talk about their past because it was really painful, and so they find things. So it's like different needs people are. But I really hope more stories like this come out about different cultures or people's story. There's a lot of room for content. So if anybody, creativity and doing these things are really, really important because it's part of that collective thing. So, and not everybody wants to read a dark story. So I saw a little thing there and I thought, some of these ladies would like to read this. They're not going to want to read that.
Yeah. And I do follow you on Twitter as well, at Natalie Grand, I believe it is.
Yeah, at Cult
So
Girls. Yeah, if you look up Cult Girls,
Twitter
Natalie
might not
Grand.
be Twitter might not even be a thing by the time our episode releases with the way things are going, but we'll have to wait and see. I will put
I'm
a
in a
link
lot
to
of the cult recovery groups on Facebook. Those are really supportive. There's me and a whole bunch of other authors, really supportive too. We see young ladies that don't know the father of their kid and they're pregnant and they got kicked out of the church. And we're like, honey, you be happy. You got a life. Like, we're just trying to give good encouragement from things we have seen. A lot of them have been single moms. If you're hurting or something, reach out. We want everybody to get healed. We're happy on good friends should be happy about you finding your happiness. So those groups are wonderful. It's people that relate to you, because you may not have people in your own little area that know what you're going to, but it's a great way to connect, or just, am I feeling normal? So there's just a lot. Social media has been a wonderful thing for a lot of these or they're trying to research a subject, and we can find them some information super fast. Even journalists, I've helped some journalists, like, hey, I'll connect them to people for research, or people are doing college research projects. I mean, it's endless. Put yourself out there. It's a lot of fun.
I'll make sure that I put all of the links on where people can find you, and also where they can grab copies of Cult Girls as well, in the episode description. And I just wanted to say thank you so much, Natalie, for going the extra mile and being a part of the efforts to expose some of the hidden knowledge, practices, policies, and really awful things that are taking place behind closed doors, where the most vulnerable of communities are being abused in all manner of ways, and really trying to do what you can to prevent that. I think it's extremely commendable work, despite your own divorce from that group. You could have just ended it there, but you've really dedicated a significant portion of your life to making changes to the people that don't have that voice that you have managed to get back for yourself. And I think that's incredible. So thank you so much for your time today, Natalie.
Thank you for bringing people together in a community as well. You really put yourself out there. So I'm really grateful for all these channels, and I'm happy to support any of them, because I still listen to them after all these years. There's such free information. A lot of them get psychologists on here that have been in cults, and I'm like, wow, so wonderful stuff that's free to people. It's a great time to live, and it's a great time if you want to jump in. It's really, just jump in and do what feels right for you.
The water's great. The water's fine. Oh, yeah. Brilliant. Enjoy the rest of your day, Natalie, and I'll talk to you soon. Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.
That is the end of this mini-series on Cult Girls. To find a copy of the book, please follow the link in the episode description. And to get in touch with me, you can find me at cultvaultpodcast@gmail.com, or follow me on Twitter and Instagram at cultvaultpod. I'm your speaker, Casey, host of the Cult Vault Podcast.